This is part 2 to my previous video on what Japan actually thinks about Assassin's Creed Shadows and Yasuke. It got an overwhelming outpour of support from the Japanese community who were grateful to finally have someone who accurately conveys what they feel about this whole situation. So I would highly recommend you to watch that video before watching this one. So what has changed in the past 2 weeks since that video? Honestly, nothing. But at the same time, absolutely everything. What hasn't changed is that Japan is still extremely outraged about Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft as a company. But what has changed is that there's a whole new slew of information that has come out that has turned this situation from bad to worse to absolute fiery dump truck levels of clusterfuck disaster. In fact, writing this video, I felt like I was standing at the foot of Mount Fuji looking up at the gargantuan task ahead of me. So, where to start? Again, I'm going to have to present this video in several parts. The first part will be an overview on what Japanese players are angry about, then the Japanese opinion on Yasuke as a main protagonist and portrayals of Yasuke in Japanese media, Ubisoft's decision to make Yasuke a main protagonist and why, and TottoriTom. That last one sounds weird, but believe me, it'll make a lot more sense once we get to that later on. And at the end of all this, I'm going to compile all the information that we do know about Yasuke as an individual. Don't worry, there's not much. Okay, so first up, what are the Japanese players angry about? A lot. A lot. But in the end, it all boils down to inaccurate representation. Inaccurate representation of Japan as a country, its culture, its history, and its people. Inaccurate representation on top of claims by Ubisoft of historical accuracy, which is incredible considering the blog post that they put out on Ubisoft.com when announcing this game. They say, and I quote, Ubisoft Quebec went to great lengths consulting source documentation and building a network of expert historians, professors, and cultural consultants to help the team build a world as authentically as possible. From castle construction principles to tea ceremonies to tatami alignment, the team made trips to Japan to help them properly grasp the landscape and the culture, and more importantly, connect with Ubisoft's Tokyo and Osaka teams who helped with the creation of this game. One thing I often saw is that if Ubisoft had stated clearly that this was a fictionalized version of Japan, then sure, there might have been some raised eyebrows about the choices they took, but there wouldn't have been nearly as much outrage as there currently is. There are aliens in this game, so how historically accurate can it be? True, but even throughout all the alien stuff, Assassin's Creed has been known and has been held in high regard when it comes to faithfully recreating the regions and time periods in which their games are set. Like how Assassin's Creed Unity is being used to rebuild Notre Dame, or how Assassin's Creed Mirage's 9th century Baghdad, a city that hasn't been around since the 13th century, was so faithfully recreated that it actually shocked historians. All that, and now when it comes to Japan and the developers are saying this...
The story that we're telling is historical fiction. So to take the events of history and what we know of the history, and then I think of it kind of like as a palette where then the story that we write based on these events and what is known and needs to fit within that palette. So we can't bring stuff from outside of this. We're trying to work within this palette, but the story is very much fiction.
They're making a very clear distinction that they're sticking within the confines of historical accuracy, but then completely misrepresent quite literally everything. This is where the problems arise. And to make it clear, Yasuke is far from the biggest problem that Japanese players have with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Even the most basic of basic things are wrong, like the tatami mats, which they mention specifically in the blog post. They're half the size that they should be. And what did that developer just say again?
Researchers and historians and consultants. So, so...
Did you guys notice the problem with that clip? No? Well, you're probably not Japanese, nor do you live in Japan, because those that saw that, it sent off quite a lot of sirens. The golden Japanese pampas grass here means it's autumn. The cherry blossoms in bloom here means it's early spring. The rice fields full of water here means it's in late May or early June, and the cranes here being visible mean it's sometime in winter. What was that again?
Researchers and historians and consultants.
Network of expert historians, professors, and cultural consultants, huh? Yeah, my 6-year-old daughter could be a better consultant than any of the people that you were allegedly speaking to. And these kinds of obvious mistakes about the most basic of basic things were prominent throughout the entirety of the promotional material for this game. Like showing Oda Nobunaga here with his family crest upside down. That is like the equivalent of seeing the Nike logo upside down on a pair of Air Jordans. I could literally make this entire video going through all of the historical inaccuracies, but I think you get the picture. Again, go watch my previous video where I go into a bit more detail about those particular inaccuracies. Since that video, there's been a petition put up on change.org with over 80,000 signatures on it as of recording this video and counting. Several instances of copyright theft with copyrighted flags and other iconography, like this example here about how they're using the images taken from Todaiji without getting any particular permission for commercial use. I'll just translate this post here. When we asked Todaiji's public relations officer, he told us that he does not approve of any commercial use and is aware that it has been used without permission by Assassin's Creed. After checking the footage, he confirmed that it is an octagonal lantern from Todaiji Temple and is currently discussing the matter. And this is just one of many various instances that of Assassin's Creed Shadows, particularly Ubisoft, using particular iconography and landmarks and such for commercial use without getting proper permission. So this is also bringing up a lot of legal issues. This is a huge thread of the use of particular flags here, and also iconography where they've changed some of the where they've changed some of the traditional images and reversed them to trying to avoid this kind of thing. But again, the images are being found out to be taken without permission, as well as the concept art itself being suspect of being created with AI-generated images, as well as Ubisoft France putting up a stand displaying Yasuke's mask and katana at Japan Expo to offer an immersive experience. Oh wait, excuse me, I misspoke. The mask is Yasuke's, but the katana is Roronoa Zoro's from the hit anime and manga series One Piece. You can get one just like this for the low price of just 40 euros. And don't forget this doll here that you can pick up on AliExpress for 2,592 yen. Not only that, Hamada Satoshi, a member of the House of Councillors, one of the biggest governmental bodies in Japan, has taken this issue up and has sent a letter of inquiry to the government regarding the rewriting of history as it pertains to Edo period Japan and Yasuke as an individual. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There is a page chronicling this dumpster fire of a situation, and it's only growing. It seems every single day there is something new that's being unearthed, or with Ubisoft sticking their foot in their mouth, making this entire situation even worse every single day. And to repeat, the problem isn't Yasuke, but the absolute lack of care taken in regards to Japan, the Japanese people, the culture, the history, and now also the copyright issues. All of these and much more. This is why the Japanese players are so angry. Okay, next up. The Japanese opinion of Yasuke as a main protagonist and portrayals of Yasuke in Japan and Japanese media. This one is a little complicated for reasons that I will explain later in the video, but for the sake of time now, let me just say that we have to separate the portrayals of Yasuke both pre-2016 and post-2016. On the whole, the Japanese don't really have any problems with Yasuke being one of the main protagonists for this game. Sure, they would have preferred a more notable samurai in the part if they were going to include a samurai parts at all. But the general consensus that I can see is that if you're going to make him one of the main characters and you say you're sticking with historical accuracy, then the least you can do is present him accurately. And the fact of the matter is, he wasn't this mighty samurai that became one of the greatest heroes of Japan. In fact, so little is known about him that we can't really say anything for sure. All we do know is that he existed, he was black, and that Oda Nobunaga took a liking to him. That's about it. But if you want to know more about what the historical records actually say about Yasuke as an individual, then stick around to the end of this video because I will go through all of that. But what about how Yasuke has been portrayed in Japan? The earliest depiction of him in Japanese media was in 1968 short story Kurosuke, in which he's referred to as an attendant of Nobunaga that performs tricks when he is asked. The next is in a satirical book from 1971 called Kurombo, and the title of this book itself can also be considered a racial slur in Japan. Next is a work titled Yuki Hideyasu in 1998, in which he is depicted as someone studying Japanese after the Honnoji incident. And then in Momoyama Beat Tribe, a book from 2008, published by Shueisha, he is referred to as a former slave that has been in Japan for around 3 years with no combat experience. Afro Samurai is the closest thing we can get, but then the main character is just inspired by Yasuke, but not an actual portrayal or depiction of Yasuke himself. In the manga Hyogemono, Yasuke is depicted as a strong servant / bodyguard, but not really referred to as a samurai. There are many more here, but I think you get the picture. Yasuke is presented as an attendant, a servant, a bodyguard, but never as a samurai. Up until 2016, that is. Again, I'll get back to why that is later. On Ubisoft's decision to make Yasuke a main protagonist and why. In that blog post I mentioned earlier, this was the reasoning they gave for choosing Yasuke to be one of their main protagonists. In Assassin's Creed Shadows, players will step into the roles of a Japanese shinobi, Naoe, and in a series first, a real-life historical samurai, Yasuke. Ubisoft Quebec's focus throughout the development of Assassin's Creed Shadows has been to fulfill two iconic player fantasies, shinobi and samurai, and ensure that its late Sengoku period setting, known for its political tumult, warfare, and dramatic social reformation, serves as an authentic backdrop for the pair. And specifically about Yasuke, they say, Yasuke, a real-life samurai. The decision to include a playable, real-life historical figure of this era in Assassin's Creed Shadows was twofold. Ubisoft Quebec wanted to include a samurai, and Yasuke's story was open-ended enough to allow for that creativity. In Assassin's Creed Shadows, his historical story is established and then developed and expanded upon from that point. In an interview with Famitsu, Shadows creative director Jonathan Dumont says, "We were looking for our samurai, someone who could be our non-Japanese eyes. The team liked the character of Yasuke and thought we could use him to discover Japan." Putting aside the "our samurai" line, which outraged Japanese players for reasons I explained in my previous video, these were the reasons given as to why they chose Yasuke, and they really emphasized the historical and authentic nature of him as a person. Even now, if you check on the official site, when they're referring to Yasuke, they say, "become the legendary samurai." These were the official reasons given, but theories have been circulating that Ubisoft was influenced by a company called Sweet Baby Inc. Sweet Baby Inc. is a Canadian narrative development and consultation studio based in Montreal. Founded by former Ubisoft developers, the company consults on video game narratives during development to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion within game narratives and studios. Looking at their official website, we can see that Ubisoft is listed as one of their clients, but I couldn't find any definitive proof that they were directly involved in any way with Assassin's Creed Shadows specifically. The closest thing I could find is this post here with the caption which reads, "Meet the diverse team of Assassin's Creed Shadows. From the narrative director and lead writer to the level designers, the team embodies diversity most unexpectedly. A group of white, Western, liberal women who seem to dislike their own skin." In which we see one of the founders of Sweet Baby Inc. in a group photo of women working at Ubisoft, I assume. I say I assume because I tried to find the source of this image but couldn't find anything. Not saying I think it's fake and anything, but I just wanted to know the context for the image in general because yes, it does look very not diverse. I took a look at Ubisoft's Quebec LinkedIn page and saw a greater mix of men and women on the team, so maybe it's not as non-diverse as it seems. But back to the image itself, like I said, we see one of the founders of Sweet Baby Inc. here, and this is the closest definitive proof I can find of their involvement. The choice to make this game have two protagonists and have one of them based on a real-life individual is unprecedented in Assassin's Creed history. As it said back in the official blog post, it's a series first. These series first coincidences lead people to believe that they weren't really coincidences at all. Every protagonist for Assassin's Creed games so far has been someone of that region or ethnicity. There's never been a necessity to have an outsider be the eyes of the players to introduce them to the land. The protagonist has never been an actual historical figure, and historical figures in these games have always been somewhat represented as they were historically known to be. All of these things have led many people to believe that Ubisoft is merely using the existence of Yasuke as a black individual in Edo period Japan as a vehicle to forcefully insert racial diversity when it's not relevant to the story at large. But why did Ubisoft represent Yasuke as this famous historical samurai in the first place? TottoriTom. If you take a look at the Wikipedia page for Yasuke, you'll be forgiven for thinking he was a samurai. The very first paragraph describes him as this. Yasuke was a man of African origin who served as a samurai to the Japanese daimyo Oda Nobunaga for a period of 15 months between 1581 and 1582, during the Sengoku period until Nobunaga's death in the Honnoji incident. And also, Nobunaga took him into his service and gave him the name Yasuke. As a samurai, he was granted a servant, a house, and a stipend. Okay, so here's the issue. Back in September of 2015, a number of edits were made to this page, citing a book that wasn't to be released until February of 2016, the next year. This book is The Story of Yasuke, Nobunaga's African Retainer, written by Thomas Lockley. The edits made to the Wikipedia page were made by a user with the handle TottoriTom, and if we click on his username to see who this individual is, we see it's actually one and the same, Thomas Lockley. Because back then when Thomas came to Japan as an ALT, he was first stationed in Tottori Prefecture, and Tom is of course short for Thomas. So there we go, Thomas Lockley is TottoriTom. So what he was doing was editing the Wikipedia page to cite his own work in order to drum up more interest and go on press tours to sell his book. It's worth noting that the other references cited for Yasuke being a samurai all get their information from this same source. This book here, African Samurai, The True Story of Yasuke, a Legendary Black Warrior in Feudal Japan by Thomas Lockley and Jeffrey Gerard. And then later on with another book, Yasuke, The True Story of the Legendary African Samurai, which came out in 2019. Both of which were written by Thomas Lockley and both of which took incredible creative freedom with their narratives that they could no longer be considered non-fiction. It would be the equivalent of considering the Da Vinci Code as also historical non-fiction. Like sure, it has like nuggets of truth there, but the overall story and narrative is completely made up. If you want an even deeper dive into Lockley's work, I recommend a video by a German YouTube channel named Einfach Japanisch. I apologize for my pronunciation, who really broke down everything really well. So it's a very good video and I highly recommend you all to watch that. So what happened was that Lockley came to Japan, created a fictionalized version or account of a very minor historical figure that would appeal to a foreign market, went on a press tour to promote his books, and once that narrative took hold in the foreign markets, that image of Yasuke came back to Japan and started to become a thing over here too. That's why there are no depictions of Yasuke as a samurai until 2016, because it just wasn't a thing at all. The evidence we have for Thomas Lockley's direct involvement with Ubisoft and the creation of this game, particularly to do with Yasuke as a character, is from this podcast here, the Echoes of History Shadows podcast talking specifically about Yasuke, the first African samurai. Yasuke is one of the most captivating and yet mysterious figures within Japanese history. In 1581, at the height of the Civil War, he crossed paths with the country's most powerful warlord, Oda Nobunaga. Their meeting bound the two men together and set Yasuke on a path to becoming the first known samurai of African descent in Japan. Delving into the history behind one of the two main characters in the latest Assassin's Creed game, Matt Lewis and Thomas Lockley, here we have it right there, examined the few surviving historical sources to reveal what we know about Yasuke, Japan's first African samurai. So why don't we just listen to see what is his particular evidence of calling or saying that Yasuke was considered a samurai at the time, shall we?
They hit it off, they talked in Japanese, and eventually, though sadly we don't know the details, I would love to know those details, somehow within a few days Yasuke has entered Nobunaga's service. Within a month he's gone to Nobunaga's castle town. There's another Jesuit record from there, and there's a Japanese record from there as well that says how much Nobunaga enjoyed talking to him, that he gave him a house, that he gave him a sword, and that's where the idea that he became a samurai comes into it. The idea being if you give somebody a sword, they are in your service, and it's a traditional mark of a samurai. What a samurai was at this point in history is up for debate, and therefore it's impossible to say 100% what it was that Nobunaga was doing for Yasuke.
So it seems that Thomas Lockley's main point of contention of claiming that Yasuke was a samurai is him being given a sword. But swords were given out for various reasons as prizes in sumo wrestling matches as well. Just being given a sword is not indicative of him being ordained or him being considered a samurai. That's an incredibly irresponsible leap in logic to make when talking about these kinds of issues. So as he just admitted as well, like after the first few days, in his own words, of coming under Oda Nobunaga's employ, he's already being made a samurai. This is not something that would have happened at all. Being considered as a samurai, and he mentioned that at the time, what determines what a samurai is was very up for debate at the time. And by the modern definitions of what we currently understand as a samurai today, and also back then as well, that doesn't make logical sense. Samurai were held in a very high regard in Edo period Japan. Even if they didn't use the word samurai, the people that we would nowadays consider samurai, those people were considered in high society in Japan. There were different levels of samurai, for sure, absolutely, but that just doesn't make sense that he would be given a sword and be considered a samurai like straight off the bat. He repeats his claim in an interview he did with the Aga Khan Museum, which you can check on YouTube. But it's important to point out that he makes a lot of claims, a lot of other claims about Yasuke that just simply aren't true, or that we can't verify to be true by any stretch of the imagination. At least not by any accounts, by any actual Japanese historians can confirm.
He was given servants, and he was given a sword, an ornate formal sword, which indicates that he was given the formal recognition of samurai rank. This picture, which is in Sakai Museum, unknown author, probably painted around 1600, shows Nobunaga here, his soldier, his samurai, waiting to wrestle. This would have been one of their training sessions, essentially. We see a man who can only be Yasuke. He's black, he's African, he's clearly not Japanese. There were no other Africans or Indians or dark-skinned people in Nobunaga's service that are recorded. We can also see quite nicely the ladies, but also the dilettante males of the court having picnics, having a picnic here, and relaxing and watching this sumo match.
As I mentioned before, Nobunaga was known to have liked sumo wrestling. We don't know if this person here is Yasuke, as he actually admitted here, but he said previously that Yasuke was given a sword, which obviously makes him a samurai, right? Okay. He pointed to these two women down here. Do you see what they have? They've got a sword. I don't think they are samurai. Like I said before, swords were often given out as prizes in sumo wrestling fights, particularly traditionally. So just him being given a sword for whatever reason doesn't indicate that he was considered in any way, shape or form a samurai.
Nobunaga retires to a small room in the middle of this temple compound and he performs seppuku. He cuts his belly. Honorable way to die. By legend, in the Oda family to this day, the last order is Yasuke, save my head. Whether this is true or not, nobody will ever know. However, it's a nice thing to think of. What we do know is that, again, within the Oda family, the legend is told that Yasuke then wrapped up Nobunaga's head and ran with it to Nobunaga's son.
Okay, so again, he makes two incredibly false claims. The order was not Yasuke, save my head. The order was, from what I understand, do not allow my corpse, do not allow my body to fall into the enemy hands. And he says, what we do know, and so he's saying as an indisputable fact, is that he says what we do know is that Yasuke took Nobunaga's head and took it to his heir. Okay, no, again, this is completely false. This is completely false. The subject of where Oda Nobunaga's head actually is has been a subject of debate and conversation, well, basically since he died, for centuries now. If I do a search for where is Oda Nobunaga's head, I got some people saying, some people say it might be in Shizuoka, but it's a very big conversation here that basically no one knows about. And when I was looking through these things, I was trying to find a case of Nobunaga saying Yasuke saved my head, or a claim to say that Yasuke was the one who took the head to his heir. I couldn't find that anywhere. Here we got this claim, this account of events, and in nowhere in this page here, if I do a search, you can't see, it's just off screen. If I do a search for Yasuke, I get 0 hits. What it does say here is that this person here, if I'm reading this correctly, this should be read as Harashima no Kami Muneyasu. Again, if I do a search for this individual here, again, trying to find that, this person here has more of a claim to be the one that took Oda Nobunaga's head and fled with it. After Honnoji, what happened to Oda Nobunaga's head? Where did it go? Where did it disappear? We still don't know where it went or who took it. There are many different theories about what happened to Oda Nobunaga's body, particularly his head, like after the Honnoji incident. None of which that I can find reference Yasuke. I've looked on many different pages to find any information regarding this, and I just can't find anything. It's one of those things that you just don't know, like where is King Arthur buried or something like that. It's one of those kinds of things that basically just no one knows. And for him to claim that he knows for sure that what we do know is the words, like what he said, what we do know, like that's just completely and utterly false. No one knows. And even when we're looking to find out who has taken it, Yasuke is not in the running for that claim of being the one that took Oda Nobunaga's head and saved it somewhere. So like I said, the location of Nobunaga's head has been much subject of debate for centuries, with no one knowing for certain just who took it and where. Again, this is Lockley just making things up out of whole cloth to make Yasuke seem to be this much more important person than he actually is. In fact, I went to my local library earlier today to find some more books regarding the Honnoji incident, to see what they said about Oda Nobunaga, Akechi Mitsuhide, and also particularly to do with Yasuke and his role in this entire thing. And out of the several books I could find on the incident, only one of them mentioned Yasuke in any particular way. And even in that reference regarding Yasuke, they referred to him as a kosho, a page, like not a page like a small boy type thing, but a page as in someone like a noble's attendant kind of way, or also as a bodyguard, but never was he referred to as a samurai. We actually know a lot about who was serving under Oda Nobunaga, particularly to do on that instant, which is a very pivotal point in Japanese history. So it's not like we don't know about any of his samurai or the people that served under him. We actually know a lot about that and exactly where they were and how they moved on that day. And even throughout all those as well, I could never find any instance of Yasuke being listed under the list of samurai that served under Nobunaga. So why are we just finding out about this now? Basically because Yasuke was such a minor individual in the context of historical Japan that he just flew under the radar for actual Japanese historians. Right now, as this whole thing has come to light, Thomas Lockley has basically completely deleted his online presence and cannot be reached on any social media. What's going to happen with him and his authority as a Japanese historian remains to be seen. In fact, there's another petition to try and get Thomas Lockley's edits regarding Yasuke completely removed from the historical record, because a lot of the claims that he's making have no real functional basis in historical accuracy. Okay, now that was a lot, and I don't blame people for not being exactly sure of what actually is happening. There are a lot of moving parts in this, but I assure you it is not just anti-woke right-wingers that are drumming this up. But are they a thing? Definitely. On the change.org petition, there are definitely people from that side of things piling on top to promote their own political agenda, and to them I say, stop. Just stop. Like this post here. This is an actual Japanese person that is concerned about the situation regarding Assassin's Creed Shadows, and they're saying here, I'll just use the translate post here. It's also crap that they're trying to assume that it's white people and not Japanese people who are opposed to Assassin's Creed, but there are actually white people pretending to be Japanese like this. It's terrible. Basically what they're saying is they don't want you inserting yourself into the conversation, pushing your own political agenda and claiming you're doing this on behalf of the Japanese. You're not. You are only making this entire situation much more complicated and giving the other side more ammo to just dismiss the Japanese people's actual genuine concern regarding Assassin's Creed Shadows and all the issues, like copyright issues and rewriting of history issues. You are just not helping. It's because of people like these two here that are completely delegitimizing this entire conversation. And because we have people such as these two here inserting themselves and pushing their own political agenda in opposition to this, it's only muddying the waters, and Japanese people do not appreciate it. They don't want you inserting your own problems and claiming you're doing this on behalf of the Japanese. You're not. They don't care about there being a black protagonist, and they don't care about anyone in the game being presented as part of the LGBTQ community either. You are not helping the situation at all. Japanese players are grateful for genuine support on this issue, but when you jump in with your own agenda that the Japanese just don't care about, it delegitimizes their grievances and only opens the door for those on the other side of things to basically just dismiss everything as noise from the racist right-wingers. I can't tell you just how many times I've seen Japanese commenters being frustrated that their comments are being dismissed out of hand. When they write in English, they're accused of not actually being Japanese, and when they write in Japanese, they're accused of just being a right-winger using Google Translate or something. So I say again, you are not helping. The best thing for you to do is to just go away and let the Japanese speak for themselves. And yes, I realize the irony of that statement coming out of this mouth. But to those on the other side of the issue, I hope you now understand that this is a genuine problem that actual Japanese have with this game, and that it's not something to be taken lightly. It doesn't matter if you personally don't mind this situation, like go out and buy the game if you really want to play it, that's fine. But Japanese players are honestly and genuinely upset, and I think it's something to take into consideration. Now, if you're not interested in what the historical records actually have to say about Yasuke as an individual, then you can close this video now. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. But if you do want to know, stick around. Okay, so now that we are at the end of the video, what do the historical records actually say about Yasuke? The three pieces of evidence being given to say that Yasuke was a samurai are him being given a stipend, him being given a sword, and also him being referred to as Tono, a polite honorific meaning something along the lines of sir or lord. On the evidence of him being given a stipend, the evidence presented is from Matsudaira Ietada's diary, Tensho 10, 4th month, which reads, 19th May 11, 1582, day of Teibi, raining. His Highness gave him a stipend. They say Deus, the Jesuits, presented him. He had the black man with him. His body was black like ink, 6.2 feet tall. They say his name's Yasuke. And the claim is that because he was given a stipend, that automatically makes him a samurai, right? No, this is a very big misconception. This is the original text being referenced, and here is a more cleaned up version of this text along with a modern day reading and its translation here. If we look at the original text, the word being used here is fuchi, which is traditionally used as a word meaning support or salary, and yes, stipend. So that's it then. He got a stipend. That makes him a samurai, right? No, not exactly. According to the Yamakawa Japanese History Dictionary, it states that during the Edo period, this was basically a samurai for any vassals of a house, and that there were also people other than them which also received this salary, such as monks, foot soldiers, and nakama. So no, this fuchi, this salary, was not exclusive to those who would be regarded as samurai by the modern definitions. It could mean literally anything. Okay, so how about him being given a sword? Does that mean he's a samurai? Again, no, not really. The references to him having a sword were in the last report about Yasuke at the Honnoji incident after Nobunaga's death. Here it's written that he gave up his sword, but we have no information in how he got his sword in the first place. Swords were often given as prizes for incredible feats, and particularly for sumo fights, which Oda Nobunaga was known to be a big fan of. Sumo in particular has a long history with swords, and so just being given a sword doesn't mean he was considered a samurai. He could have been given one for any number of reasons. And the last one is him being referred to by the honorific Tono, meaning sir or lord. The source for this is in a letter from Lorenzo Messia on October 8th, 1581, which says, "The padre brought one Cafre with him, and no one in the capital has seen before, and they all admired him. The countless people came to see him. Nobunaga himself saw him and was surprised and thought it was painted with ink, and did not believe he was black from birth. He saw him from time to time, and he knew some Japanese, so he never got tired of talking to him. And he was strong and knew some tricks, so Nobunaga was very happy. Now he's his strong patron, and to let everyone know he has someone to go with him around the city. The people say Nobunaga would make him a Tono." It's important to note here at the end, it says, "the people say," and that Nobunaga would make him a Tono, not that he already has made him or that there were any official plans to make him so. In short, the people were gossiping, but nothing concrete. Another thing to note is that this letter was not by any significant authority in Japan, nor by any Japanese. It was rather a letter from Lorenzo Messia to Pero da Fonseca. All in all, there just isn't much information about Yasuke at all. A Reddit user by the name of Parallel Pain put a list of all the written accounts of Yasuke that they could find for a grand total of 5. 3 of which we've already gone through here, and none of which say that Yasuke was a samurai, a warrior, or anyone of any particular note. There is literally zero evidence to support the claim that Yasuke was a samurai, or even that he was regarded as a samurai. In fact, as I mentioned before, after the death of Nobunaga, Yasuke gave up his sword and submitted himself to capture. Akechi Mitsuhide was asked what to do with him, and he said that he is like an animal and knows nothing, and he's not Japanese, so don't kill him and give him to the church of the Indian padre. If Yasuke really was this important individual held in the same regard as a samurai, this is not how Akechi Mitsuhide would have dealt with him. Another big piece of information going against Yasuke being a samurai is that he was not given a family name or a clan name. It might sound trivial, but family names are incredibly important when establishing oneself in high-class Japanese societal structures. The only other case I can find of a foreign-born samurai, or any samurai at all, that doesn't have a family name is Jan Josten van Lodenstein, whose Japanese name is just his actual name, but given kanji, as he still went by his foreign-born name regardless. Personally speaking, I think the evidence presented for Yasuke being considered a samurai is flimsy at best, and it would be academic malpractice to claim otherwise. Okay, so I think that is everything. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Sources for all the relevant information will be in the description. Sorry, I'm having trouble speaking right now. Yeah, so check out the sources for yourself in the information below. It was a lot of information to go through, and I put a lot of research into this video to put this video together. So if you enjoyed it, I would greatly appreciate a thumbs up, and for you to subscribe if you are not done so already. Okay, so I need to go lay down. I'm kind of feeling a bit lightheaded. So until next time, I will see you in the next video. Peace.